The attic had always been a mystery to Clara. It wasn't the kind of place anyone ventured into unless they had a good reason. Dusty, cluttered, and forgotten, it had been a repository for old memories, broken furniture, and things long past their usefulness. When her parents passed, the house had fallen to her, and it was up to Clara to sort through the remnants of her family's history. She didn't expect to find anything important, just old clothes, worn books, and perhaps a few trinkets that could be donated or discarded. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. It was a rainy afternoon when Clara finally decided to tackle the attic. The sound of the rain drumming against the roof was a steady, rhythmic backdrop as she climbed the narrow, creaking stairs. The air was thick with dust, and the dim light filtering through the small window illuminated floating particles, making the room feel like a forgotten corner of time. As she began sorting through boxes, she found old photo albums, her grandmother's wedding dress, and a rusted chest filled with yellowed papers and long-faded documents. It was a trip down memory lane, a glimpse into the lives of family members she had never known, but who were now connected to her in a way she hadn't fully appreciated before. There were business papers, a few love letters exchanged between her grandparents, and receipts from transactions that had long since faded from importance. But then she found it, the letter. It was tucked inside an old, leather-bound journal, sealed but never sent. The envelope was fragile, the paper almost crumbling in her hands as she carefully pulled it out. It had her great-grandfather's name scrawled on the front, Thomas Gray, in faded ink, but the address had never been filled out. Curious, Clara gently opened the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly as she unfolded the brittle piece of paper. The letter was written in her great-grandfather's hand. Strong, deliberate strokes, though the ink was smudged in places, and the lines near the bottom grew shakier, as if he had struggled to finish. Clara's heart skipped a beat as she began to read.
My dearest friend John, I hope this letter finds you in good health, though I fear it never will. As I sit here, confined to this bed, I am haunted by thoughts of what I have done and the years I spent running from the truth. I write this not for forgiveness, for I do not believe I deserve it, but so that perhaps, one day, the truth will be known. You were my closest friend, my brother in all but blood. We built something together that I was proud of, a business, a legacy we thought would outlast us both. But greed is a powerful thing, John. It can twist a man's soul, blind him to what is right, and lead him down a path he never thought he'd walk. That is what happened to me. Do you remember the Davenport deal? Of course you do. It was the deal that changed everything. We were on the cusp of something great, and it was your idea that made it possible. You trusted me to handle the negotiations, and I assured you that everything would be fine. You trusted me, John, but I betrayed that trust. What you never knew, what I never told you, was that I made a deal behind your back. Davenport had offered me a way to cut you out of the profits, a chance to take more for myself without you ever knowing. At the time, I justified it to myself. I told myself that I deserved it, that I had worked just as hard as you, maybe harder, and that taking a little more wouldn't hurt anyone. I was wrong. What I didn't see was how my betrayal would unravel everything we had built. The deal was flawed, rushed because of my greed, and it led to the collapse of everything we had worked for. When the business fell apart, I watched you lose everything. You blamed circumstances, poor timing, the market, but the truth is it was me. It was my greed, my betrayal that destroyed everything. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was a coward. I couldn't bear to see the look of betrayal in your eyes, to lose the friendship that meant more to me than any amount of money. So I stayed silent. We drifted apart, and I let you live in ignorance, never knowing that it was I who had torn your life apart. Now, as I lay here with death closing in, I realized that silence was the greatest sin of all. You deserved to know the truth, and I denied you that. I denied you the chance to make your own decisions, to forgive me or condemn me. And now, it's too late for me to ask for your forgiveness. This letter is my confession, John. I know it cannot make up for what I did, but I needed to put the truth down, if only so that it would not be buried with me. If you ever read this, I want you to know that I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I loved you like a brother, and I betrayed you like an enemy. I hope that one day you find peace, even if I never do. Your friend, Thomas.
Clara's hands trembled as she finished reading. She sat there, stunned, as the weight of the letter's contents settled over her. Her great-grandfather, a man she had heard stories about all her life, had lived with this secret, this betrayal, festering inside him for decades. And worse still, the letter had never been sent. John Davenport, her great-grandfather's closest friend, had gone to his grave never knowing the truth. The question that gnawed at her now was simple. What should she do with this letter? Should she reveal it, expose the truth to the world, or let it remain a forgotten secret, hidden in the past? For a moment, Clara considered simply burning the letter. No one else had seen it. No one else knew. She could destroy it, and no one would ever have to bear the burden of her great-grandfather's sins. But something stopped her. The letter was a confession, a plea for redemption that had never been answered. Could she really deny the dead the chance to have their story told? She paced the attic, the letter still clutched in her hand. What would revealing this truth do? Who would it help? Davenport's family might never know the betrayal their patriarch had suffered. But if Clara sent this letter to them now, it could open old wounds, stir up pain that had long since been buried. But on the other hand, didn't they deserve to know the truth? Didn't they have the right to understand what had really happened all those years ago? Clara thought of her own family, of the legacy her great-grandfather had left behind. She had always been proud of her family's history, proud of the man her great-grandfather had been, until now. If this letter became public, it would change everything. His reputation, their family name, it could all be tainted by this one revelation. Was it fair to drag the past into the present like this? And yet, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this letter had come to her for a reason. She had found it for a reason. Maybe this was her great-grandfather's final plea for forgiveness, his last chance to make things right. He had carried this guilt for so long, never able to unburden himself of it. Maybe it was up to her to finish what he couldn't, to send the letter, to let the truth be known. But what would that truth do? Would it heal old wounds or rip them open? Clara wasn't sure. For days she wrestled with the decision. The letter lay on her desk, a constant reminder of the choice she had to make. She couldn't escape it, couldn't forget about it. It was a ghost from the past, demanding to be acknowledged. Finally, she made her decision. Clara sat down at her desk and carefully placed the letter back in its envelope. Her heart pounded in her chest as she addressed it, not to the Davenport family, but to her own lawyer. She had decided to have the letter sent to a historical archive, where it could be preserved without causing immediate harm to anyone. If future generations wanted to uncover the truth, they could. But for now, the letter's contents would remain a secret, hidden away but not destroyed. It wasn't a perfect solution. Clara knew that, but it felt like the right one. As she sealed the envelope and prepared to send it off, she whispered a quiet apology to her great-grandfather. He had lived with his guilt for so long, and now she too would carry a piece of it. But at least now, the truth wasn't entirely buried. It would live on, waiting to be discovered by those who sought it. And perhaps, in that distant future, when the truth finally came to light, forgiveness would follow.